A Galactic Commander slapped a Navy SEAL. 2 seconds later, the Council. Beginning. The Citadel of Orion Prime was the single most fortified station in the galaxy. Suspended in the cold silence of the Veil Nebula, its towers of obsidian steel and crystalline glass pierced upward like jagged spires. Inside, chambers pulsed with blue light as the Galactic Council prepared to convene. Every delegate, every commander, every observer knew today's assembly would not be routine. Earth had, at long last, been invited to the council table. For centuries, humanity had clawed its way through wars, famines, and petty disputes on their small blue planet, while other civilizations observed silently from afar. They were seen as primitive, unpredictable, and dangerous, a species too volatile to entrust with the delicate balance of interstellar law. But something had shifted. The ascendancy war against the Krell Dominion had changed everything. Human forces had been unexpectedly effective as auxiliaries, their ferocity on the battlefield both awe-inspiring and horrifying to other species. Among the delegation of humans stood Commander Eric Valen of the United Stellar Navy, Earth's chosen representative, and beside him, clad in his Earthborn uniform, was Navy SEAL John Cutter. Cutter wasn't there to speak, nor to sit at the council table. He was there as a symbol. His presence was supposed to remind the galaxy that humanity's warriors were not myths or data projections. They were flesh and blood. The chamber was colossal, with banners of dozens of worlds unfurling from ceiling to floor. The council's dais formed a half-moon of crystalline thrones, each occupied by a representative of a great power. Insectoid Thar, the winged meridian sovereignty, the crystalline Salith, and others whose very forms were hard for human eyes to comprehend. Eric Valen stood tall, dressed in ceremonial silver armor that gleamed under the artificial starlight. Cutter stood just behind him, scanning the chamber with the soldier's instinct of a man who'd been dropped into hostile zones too many times to count. The council speaker, a towering meridian with feathers like molten gold, spread his wings. Humanity, today you claim your voice in the chorus of civilizations. But first, you must answer for your violence. Why should we believe you capable of restraint? Eric began his carefully prepared speech about discipline, treaties, cooperation, and the balance of power. His words were measured, diplomatic, crafted to soothe. Cutter, however, couldn't ignore the way some of the other delegates whispered, their voices dripping with disdain. To them, humanity was little more than a primitive war tribe in metal shells. Then it happened. High Admiral Trawl of the Salith leaned forward, his crystalline form gleaming. His voice chimed like shards of glass. Human warriors are nothing but savages. They would sooner bite than negotiate. This seal you bring is no symbol. He is a threat. You dress a beast in uniform and call it honor. Cutter stiffened. He'd been called worse on Earth, but something about the condescension in Trawl's tone dug under his skin. Eric raised his hand in a diplomatic gesture, urging him to remain calm. And then, before anyone could process it, Eric Valen's hand lashed out. Slap. The sharp crack echoed through the chamber, silencing 1,000 whispers. The Galactic Commander had slapped John Cutter across the face. Cutter didn't flinch. His jaw tightened, but his eyes stayed locked on Eric's. 2 seconds later, the council chamber erupted. Middle. Delegates shouted in overlapping voices, their translators struggling to keep pace. Some accused humanity of barbarism. Others demanded Eric's immediate removal. The Meridian speaker slammed his staff, sending a shockwave of sound across the room. Order, Commander Valen, explain yourself. Eric's chest rose and fell with controlled breath. I struck him because it is what you expected. You wanted proof that humanity is undisciplined, savage, unable to control its warriors. And so I gave you your theater. Now watch his response. Every eye turned to Cutter. The Navy SEAL stood motionless, the red mark of the slap still vivid on his cheek. He didn't raise his fists. He didn't retaliate. Instead, he snapped a rigid attention and saluted the council dais with crisp precision. Permission to speak, sirs and madams of the council, Cutter said, his voice carrying to the translators. The council hesitated. Then the speaker inclined his head. You may. Cutter's voice was steady, disciplined, yet burning with conviction. I've served in deserts, jungles, oceans, and the void. I've fought enemies that wore no uniform, and I've buried friends who deserved better. A slap doesn't make me lose control. A word doesn't break me. You can test my pride, my endurance, my loyalty, but you won't find me lacking. Humanity isn't dangerous because we are wild. We're dangerous because we can endure what others cannot. And we choose when we must to fight not for conquest, but for each other. Silence followed. Even the insectoid Thar stopped their clicking. Trawl of the Salith sneered. Fine words. Yet your species leveled its own cities in nuclear fire. You burned your world's skies. Why should we think you won't turn that destruction outward? Cutter stepped forward, his gaze unblinking. Because we learned. The ashes of our past are the reason we built rules for ourselves. We know what happens when we forget. And when we go to war, it's not because we hunger for blood. It's because we will not bow to tyranny. Ask the Krell Dominion, what happens when they try to chain us? The mention of the Krell shifted the chamber. Many species had lost fleets in that war. The Krell were a threat no one underestimated. And it had been human marines and seals who stormed their breeding worlds with reckless bravery, turning battles the Council thought unwinnable. The speaker's golden wings rustled. Perhaps this demonstration was not unwise, Commander Valen. Yet the Council must deliberate. The session recessed into chaos. In the private chambers afterward, Cutter confronted Eric. You could have warned me before slapping me in front of half the galaxy. Eric allowed himself the faintest smile. Would you have stood as still if you'd known? Cutter considered it, then chuckled dryly. Probably not. I might have broken your jaw. Their laughter cut through the tension. But both men knew the Council's decision could go either way. That night, Cutter walked the Citadel's observation deck, staring out into the nebula. He thought about the men he'd lost on Earth, about the wars fought in the mud and the dirt, and how small they seemed compared to this theater of stars. Yet at the same time, he realized they weren't small at all. Humanity's story was written in blood and sacrifice, but it was real. It was earned. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a symbol for billions of humans who might one day stand equal among the stars. Ending. The following day, the Council reconvened. The air was heavy with expectation. Delegates had argued deep into the night. Some still saw humanity as reckless. Others saw potential. The speaker raised his staff once more. The Council has reached a decision. Humanity shall be granted provisional membership, subject to continued demonstration of discipline and cooperation. Any violation of interstellar law, and this membership will be revoked. A ripple of voices swept the chamber, some approving, some doubtful. Cutter exhaled slowly. Eric placed a hand on his shoulder. We've taken the first step. But then Trawl rose again, crystalline edges shimmering with disdain. I move that the human warrior prove his words immediately. Let him stand trial by combat against the Council champion. If he endures, then perhaps his kind deserve a voice. If not, humanity's savagery will be laid bare. The chamber stirred. Trial by combat was ancient, rarely invoked, but was legal. Cutter didn't wait for Eric to object. He stepped forward. I'll do it. The arena was prepared within hours. Delegates gathered in tiers of shining platforms overlooking a circular floor of energy-forged stone. Cutter stood alone, armed with nothing but a training staff. Across from him loomed his opponent, a towering Thar warrior armored in chitin, wielding a plasma spear. The fight began with a roar. The Thar lunged, spear flashing, its multiple limbs moving with terrifying speed. Cutter ducked, rolled, and struck with precision honed by years of brutal training. He took blows that rattled his bones, but he refused to fall. Every time the Thar drove him down, Cutter rose again, blood staining his uniform. Minutes stretched into eternity. Then, at last, Cutter found his opening. He drove his staff against the Thar's neck joint, forcing the giant to stagger. Instead of delivering a killing blow, he stopped, staff hovering at the creature's throat. I could end it, Cutter said, panting. But I won't, because this fight was never about killing. It was about proving restraint. The Thar's compound eyes blinked. Slowly, it lowered its spear in acknowledgement. The chamber erupted, not in outrage, but in applause. Even Trawl was silent. The speaker rose, voice booming. Then it is decided. Humanity has shown both strength and discipline. Welcome to the Council. Cutter dropped his staff, bloody but unbowed. Eric joined him in the arena, clasping his shoulder. You just changed the course of history, Eric said. Cutter shook his head. No, we did. All of us back home, all of us who fought, all of us who bled. I just reminded them. As the banners of the Council unfurled around him, John Cutter, the Navy SEAL slapped before the galaxy, stood tall. Humanity had taken its place among the stars. And for the first time, the Council feared not their savagery, but their resilience.